My friends, if you were to ask me, after a lifetime of studying this curious, magnificent, and often perplexing thing we call human nature, what is the one principle, the one golden rule, upon which all lasting influence, all genuine friendship, all meaningful connection is built? I would not point you to a complex formula buried in some academic tome. I would not give you a list of manipulative tricks, of clever phrases designed to disarm and deceive. No, I would take you by the arm, lead you to a window on a summer's day, and I would point you to a hive. Look at it. Study its quiet, purposeful hum. Tens of thousands of distinct individuals working not in chaotic competition, in jealousy or in strife, but in a state of profound silent cooperation, a symphony of effort, where every note matters. The success of this hive, its very survival, its enduring prosperity, does not depend on one bee standing atop the comb, proclaiming its own importance to the swarm. It does not thrive on vanity. It depends, my friends, on each humble bee attending diligently to the needs of the others. It depends on a fundamental, selfless interest, a pre-programmed and beautiful devotion to the collective well-being. The honey, that sweet golden reward we so covet, is not the solitary goal of a single, ambitious bee. It is the beautiful, inevitable byproduct of this attentive, collective life. It is what emerges when the community tends to itself. Now, consider this. For nearly a century, since these very principles were first penned, we humans have chased the honey. We have chased the honey of success, of influence, of being liked, admired, and followed. And yet, we have done so while tragically, persistently ignoring the fundamental architecture of the hive itself. We focus with laser intensity on our own pot of honey, our own desires, our own burning need to be heard, to be validated and admired. And in doing so, in this desperate focus on extraction, we neglect the garden. We starve the very relationships, the very connections that would naturally, generously produce that sweetness for us all. Today, we will lay down our own combs, our own narrow pursuits, and we will examine with clear eyes two of the most profound and most tragically overlooked chapters in the entire art of human relations. Chapter 4. Become genuinely interested in other people. And Chapter 5. Smile. They are not mere suggestions. They are, I submit to you, the very cornerstones. This is not a lecture about social technique. This is a conversation, a quiet and profound dialogue about a fundamental reorientation of the soul, a shift from being a collector of attention to being a cultivator of connection. Shall we begin? There is a great and painful paradox at the very heart of human desire. We all, every one of us, from the child seeking a parent's praise to the elder wishing for legacy, have a deep, aching, undeniable hunger to feel important, to feel that we matter, that our existence has weight and meaning in the eyes of another. It is a craving as old as consciousness itself, as fundamental as the need for air or water. And yet, the primary method by which we, in our great and tragic wisdom, seek to satisfy this hunger is to talk about ourselves, to proclaim our own importance from the rooftops, to ensure our story is heard, often at the expense of all others. We go to a party and we rehearse our anecdotes in the mirror of the mind. We enter a conversation and we lie in wait, like a hunter, for the slightest pause. For the moment, we can pivot the topic deftly back to our own experiences, our own triumphs, our own opinions. We listen, but let us be honest. We do not listen to understand. We listen to reload. That reminds me of the time we interject. Oh, you think that's something? Let me tell you what I did, we declare. It is a duet where both parties are singing their own aria, deaf to the other's melody. And in doing so, we commit the greatest, the most lonely social sin imaginable. We make the other person feel invisible. We render them a backdrop to our own solo performance. We are so busy broadcasting our own signal, amplifying our own frequency, that we jam and distort the frequency of everyone else in the room. Is it any wonder, then, that we leave these interactions feeling emptier, more isolated than when we arrived? We walk away wondering with a pang of sadness why no one seemed truly interested in us, all the while being utterly, completely uninterested in them. We seek water, but we are digging in a desert of our own making. Now, consider a different approach. Consider the example of Theodore Roosevelt, a man who knew a thing or two about command, about presence, about filling a room with the force of his personality. He was legendary for a simple, transformative habit. Before a guest, any guest, would arrive at the White House for an evening, Roosevelt would stay up late into the night, reading deeply, fervently, on the subject that the guest was most passionate about. It might be medieval poetry, or the breeding habits of tropical birds, or the intricacies of Portuguese politics. He wasn't preparing a monologue about his own policies, his own achievements. He was preparing to ask insightful, probing, genuinely curious questions. He was preparing, in essence, to be a humble and enthusiastic student of their world, of their expertise. So when the guest arrived, they did not simply meet the President of the United States, a statue of power. They met, for one glorious, unforgettable evening, the world's most attentive, most prepared audience member to the grand opera of their own life. And how do you think they felt about him afterward? They felt enlarged, they felt heard, they felt, in a word, important. And from that feeling, loyalty and admiration bloom not as obligations, but as natural flowers. This, my friends, is not political strategy. This is human strategy in its purest, most potent form. Let me tell you another story about a young man named Edward. Edward was shy, awkward, his words often stumbling over his good intentions. He desperately wanted to make friends, to be included in the lively circles around him. He tried telling jokes, but the timing was off. He tried being agreeably silent, but he became a ghost. Nothing worked. One evening, in quiet despair, he decided on a radical, almost frightening experiment. At the next social gathering, he would impose upon himself a vow of silence regarding his own life. He would not say a single word about his job, his hobbies, his opinions. His entire mission, his sole purpose for the night, would be to discover one genuinely interesting thing, one hidden spark about every single person he met. With this resolve, he approached the quiet woman standing alone by the bookcase. He asked about the unusual filigreed brooch she was wearing. Her eyes, which had been downcast, flickered up. It was her grandmother's, she said, a final gift from Prague before the war. The story that unfolded was not about jewelry, but about survival, love, and memory. He then turned to the bored-looking businessman nursing a drink, staring at the wall. Edward asked not about mergers or markets, but what he enjoyed doing, what truly captivated him when he wasn't in the office. The man paused, then confessed a secret passion: amateur astronomy. He spoke of mapping craters on the moon with a homemade telescope in his backyard, of the sublime silence of the cosmos. For 2 hours, Edward moved through the room, a gentle detective of human souls. He asked and he listened, truly listened, and then he asked more, following the threads of their enthusiasm. When Edward finally left that party, something remarkable, something beautiful happened. Person after person sought him out, touched his arm, and said with sincere warmth, "Edward, you are a fascinating conversationalist." The greatest irony, the most wonderful paradox. He had said almost nothing about himself. His own story remained a closed book. But by showing a genuine, active, enthusiastic interest in the sacred stories of others, he made them feel fascinating. He made them feel seen, and therefore alive. And in making them feel alive, he became, in their eyes, the most wonderful, the most attractive person in the room. He gave them the gift of themselves, and they gave him their friendship in return. The principle, therefore, is this crystalline truth. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. Let that sink in. It inverts the entire common understanding. Friendship, true regard, lasting influence, they are not things you seize like a trophy. They are not commodities to be demanded. They are delicate things that bloom naturally and gracefully in the fertile soil of your attentive, selfless interest. Stop trying to be the blazing sun, demanding that everyone orbit around you. That light can be harsh, and it casts long shadows. Instead, learn to be the patient gardener who tends with care to every unique flower in the plot. Learn its soil, its seasons, its particular needs. The honey, the sweet fruit of connection, will follow as a natural consequence. It cannot be forced, only fostered. And how, then, does one signal this genuine interest from the very first moment? How does one open the door to another person's world before a single word of inquiry is spoken? How do you create the climate where curiosity can grow? We come now to the simplest, the most powerful, and paradoxically, the most neglected tool in the entire human arsenal. Chapter 5. The Smile. I must be clear. I am not talking about a mechanical grimace, a mere lifting of the corners of the mouth, not the perfunctory rapid twitch of facial muscles we use as cheap social lubricant. I am talking about a smile that originates not in the lips, but in the eyes, a smile that begins as a softening in the gaze, a gentle crinkling at the corners of the eyes, the windows of the soul, a smile that is the pure physical manifestation of a warm, welcoming, and open spirit, a smile that says, without uttering a single syllable, "I am glad you are here. Your presence makes a difference. The world is better, brighter, with you in it." A true, sincere smile is a primal signal of non-threat. It disarms the ancient, wary reptilian parts of the brain that are always scanning for danger. It says, on a level deeper than language, "I am safe. You are safe. We can lower our guards. We can connect." It is the universal password to human rapport. Do you know what the most valuable, the most potent asset of a department store clerk, a receptionist, a leader, or a friend truly is? It is not their encyclopedic knowledge of inventory. It is not their lightning efficiency. It is a simple, sincere, and freely given smile. I have witnessed, time and again, a clerk with a radiant, genuine smile move more merchandise, resolve more complaints, and receive more gracious treatment from even the most frustrated customers than the most knowledgeable but dour, stern expert behind the counter. People will forgive delays. They will overlook errors. They will endure inconveniences if they feel in their bones that they are in the presence of a human being who sees them as a human being, not as a transaction, not as an interruption, but as a person worthy of a moment of grace. Let me share with you a story that has stayed with me, that has haunted me with its simple power for decades. It's about a man we shall call William. William was, by all external metrics, a successful businessman. His ledgers were in order, his reputation solid, but he was a deeply, profoundly unhappy man. His face, through years of stress, of striving, of relentless pressure, had settled into a permanent default mask of worry, severity, and stern judgment. He was respected, yes, but he was not loved. He was effective, but he was lonely, a general without an army that believed in him. One morning, standing before his bathroom mirror, shaving, he was struck by the harshness of his own reflection. As an almost absurd last-ditch experiment, he decided that for one day, just one single day, he would consciously make himself smile. Not a fake, plastered-on grin. He would think of one small thing he was genuinely grateful for: the warmth of the morning coffee in his hand, the simple fact of the sunlight patterning the floor, and he would let that feeling, that tiny spark of gratitude, touch his face. He would allow it to manifest. He smiled tentatively at his doorman that morning. After a moment of surprise, the doorman offered a small, tired but real smile back. He smiled at the nervous junior executive trembling in the elevator, clutching a report. The young man's shoulders visibly relaxed, as if a physical weight had been lifted. He smiled at his stern, forbidding secretary when he entered the office. She blinked, peered at him over her glasses, and then, miraculously, her own stern face softened, melted, into the first genuine, unguarded smile he had seen from her in all his years there. By lunchtime, William felt a curious, entirely new sensation. The world was smiling back. This was not his imagination. It was a physical, tangible reality. The mask had begun to melt, not just on his own face, but on the faces of everyone he met. People he had known for years as stern silhouettes in the hallways suddenly gained softness, humanity. He now understood. He wasn't just projecting warmth. He was eliciting it, like a tuning fork eliciting resonance in a string. The simple, physical act of arranging his face into an expression of goodwill began to generate the genuine feeling within. The action preceded the emotion, and then the emotion in turn fed the action. It was an ancient, forgotten law of human psychology. Our body can shape our mind. By smiling, we send a signal to our own nervous system. All is well. You are safe. You are among friends. And the system responds, gradually loosening the vice of inner tension. By the end of that day, William was changed. He wasn't just behaving differently, he was different. The smile ceased to be a tactic, a conscious effort. It became a symptom, an outward manifestation of a changed inner state. It was no longer a mask, but a true face, finally seeing the light. His stern secretary, Mrs. Graham, lingered at the door of his office. "Mr. William," she said, and her voice held an uncharacteristic hesitation, "I wanted to thank you. Today was very pleasant to work." There was no flattery in these words. There was a simple, human gratitude for the dignity that had been returned to her. A smile costs nothing, but creates an immense amount. It enriches the one who receives it without impoverishing the one who gives it. It lasts but an instant, yet the memory of it can sometimes last a lifetime. It is the universal welcome understood by the infant and the elder, the king and the peasant, on any continent, in any culture. It is the first ray of trust, breaking through the thickness of prejudice. It is that very first drop of honey offered to a stranger, a signal that our hive poses no threat, that there is room for them too. So here we have our two pillars, the two supports upon which rests the entire edifice of genuine human influence. The inner orientation, genuine, authentic interest, and the outer signal, the sincere, heartfelt smile. Individually, each of these principles possesses great power. Interest opens doors into other worlds. A smile thaws the ice of the first moments. But together, they perform the true alchemy of human connection. They create what can be called attentive warmth. This is not mere politeness. It is an active, focused, generous energy directed at another person. It is attentive warmth, not loudness, not wit, not a display of brilliant intellect. That is the true foundation of charismatic appeal. It is that powerful, quiet force which consists of the ability to make another person the absolute center of your universe for a few minutes, to switch off the inner monologue, to set aside your own concerns, and with the fullness of your presence, say to the person, "In this moment, only you exist for me. Your world matters. Your words have meaning." This is how an acquaintance turns into a friend, not through an exchange of pleasantries, but through an exchange of genuine attention. This is how a skeptical client turns into a devoted partner. They see that you care not only for their purse, but for their success, for their problems. This is how you lead people, not by the force of your will, not by threats or manipulation, but by the warmth of your sincere regard. People follow those in whose eyes they see the fire of interest for them, not those who simply shout loudly about themselves. Practice this, but practice it not as a manipulation, not as a cold calculation. Practice it as a discipline of the heart, as a daily hygiene of the soul, as a conscious decision to see in every person not a function, not an obstacle, but a unique, complex, and invaluable story waiting to be acknowledged. Your smile is the key you turn in the lock. Your genuine interest is the door you open wide. Begin with the mechanical, if you must. Make the smile your default setting. When you lift the telephone receiver, smile first. Your voice will carry a different timbre, a softer frequency. When you open a door, meet a colleague, approach a stranger to ask for directions, let your face light with that first gentle signal of peace. Let your smile be the herald, the advance messenger of your interest. Then deploy the question. Move beyond the barren desert of what do you do? Venture into the fertile valleys of what captures your imagination. What challenge are you quietly, bravely overcoming? What brought you a moment of joy this week? Listen to the answer, not just to the nouns and verbs. Listen for the music behind the words, the tremor of fear, the crescendo of hope, the steady bass note of pride. Your listening is the soil in which their truth can grow. Then, and this is where the magic becomes enduring, execute the follow-up. This is the act that transforms a pleasant interaction into a lasting bond. A week, a month later, you see them, and you ask, how did that difficult conversation with your colleague end? Or, did you find the book you were searching for? You remembered. In a world where people often feel forgotten the moment they step out of a room, to be remembered is to be validated. To be remembered is to feel that you have left an imprint on the universe. It is, in its purest form, to be loved. You are then no longer two individuals exchanging data across a transactional void. You become a curator of their experience, a witness to their life's journey, and in return, they will hold you in a place of immense trust and quiet affection. You will have influence, not because you demanded it, but because you bestowed importance. You tended to their need to matter. We began with the hive, a society built not on the declaration of self, but on service to the whole, on the profound understanding that the welfare of the one is inextricably linked to the welfare of the many. My friends, the sweetest honey of human life, love, friendship, deep trust, lasting influence cannot be seized, commandeered, or taken. It can only be given freely and generously, and received in kind. When you become genuinely interested in another person, you are, in the most profound sense, tending to the hive. You are repairing a connection, strengthening a bond, adding to the collective reserve of goodwill. You are making the common life not just possible, but prosperous and sweet. And your smile? It is the first gift you offer from that hive. It is the visual proof, the undeniable evidence that your interest is not clinical, not analytical, but human. It is the open door, the warm light in the window, the invitation to connect. Do not waste another day, my friends, trying to extract honey from a hive you have neglected, from relationships you have left untended. Do not wonder why you feel isolated in a crowd, why your words seem to fall on deaf ears. Turn your attention outward. Let your first thought, upon meeting any soul, be this quiet question: I wonder what is wonderful about you? And then let that thought light your face. Let that curiosity guide your words. Tend to the hive. Diligently, patiently, kindly. The honey will come, not as a solitary prize for you alone, but as a shared abundance for all who dwell within the circle of your warm, attentive, smiling regard. Go and practice this wisdom. You will find, as William did, that it transforms not only your relationships, but the very texture of your days and the quality of your own soul. It is the path from loneliness to connection, from transaction to communion. Good day.